She's gonna be late, or had to be going. Whoa. That was me. Are we ready, Dennis? Nope. Hey, the problem child?
Just make sure your audio and your mic is muted.
We ready?
Yes.
Got 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to all the administrators, thank you guys for getting out tonight. Welcome any of the guests that are gonna watch us online tonight. You have everybody sign up?
Yes.
Okay.
Before I motion, one of the things I've asked for, and I know there's conflicts with basketball and Brandon, but is I get a lot of complaints from the rec and the school's relationship, and I've asked twice, 2 months in a row now for it, and the game was canceled, I think, by lunch. Is it gonna be something we can make sure we get on the books for March?
I talked to Brandon about that, and you're right. I forgot about trying to get with him to get it rescheduled today. When we canceled, there was enough going on, but we planned to have him, and then we rescheduled the game for Douglas tonight, so he couldn't do it. So I said, we've got more that really would like to get a report from you. And so we settled on March would probably be the best time to do that.
Motion to approve agenda. Second.
Motion by Christie, seconded by Erica. All those in favor? 5-0. Entrance comments. I guess. Max. Consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion by Christie.
Second.
Who was that? Erica? Or Angie?
Angie.
Angie, thank you, Angie. Seconded by Angie. All those in favor? 5-0. Get some grants.
Kingman High School Booster Club offered to donate $1,500 towards the broadcast fees for games that are streamed on the National Federation. And so that was to pay for Kingman games on the National Federation at no charge to anybody that's viewing anywhere. So we appreciate that, and I recommend that you accept the $1,500 donation from the Kingman High School Booster Club for that purpose.
So on that, Max, since I was part of that decision to give the grant, should I abstain from this vote, or does it matter?
I don't, I think you're
Okay.
fine on this.
I'll make it for you. I keep you out of trouble. I move to accept the $1,500 donation from the KHS Booster Club with thanks.
Yes.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you to the Booster Club, Christie. That's
Yeah,
pretty
would
cool.
you make sure you relay that to
Yeah,
at your
that's
next meeting?
cool.
Now, one thing that should probably, I hate to emphasize or bring out, but once postseason comes around, even if we're hosting the game, that will not be included as part of this $1,500, as part of the free. Because then that money becomes, those games technically are the property of the publication rights or the Kansas State High School Activity Association. So I know there'll be people that don't hear this and they're surprised on why all of a sudden they'll have to pay, but that'll be the way it is. So
Christie, would you pass that along?
Yeah,
The board?
I'll email it out
Okay,
tonight.
Thank you.
Transportation bus bids.
Jerome came to the board a couple of months ago and talked to us, gave you guys as a board an update on all the transportation fleet. And we had some conversation as to whether we, because if in tight budget times, this is an area that we can sometimes put off. But as far as purchase of our route buses, as I said in my supporting documentation, we're in a situation this year where we probably do in fact need to, not probably, we do need to go ahead and continue with our rotations. Buses, route buses can be driven for 25 years legally, but we don't have a bus that'll last 25 years just because we beat them up on our country roads. So we've purchased our last several buses from Midwest Bus in Bonner Springs, and they're a Thomas-built bus. And the reason we went Thomas-built was a combination. Jerome liked those, plus the bus drivers seem to prefer those as far as being able to see out of them. Midwest Bus Sales, they have changed their body style just a little bit. And one of the things that appealed to Jerome was when we have a warranty work on the Thomas buses, we've got to get them up to Bonner Springs, which is, you know, where, if you don't know, Bonner Springs is up by Kansas City. And so it becomes kind of semi-problematic. It's just an unnecessary, and they're great buses, don't get me wrong, but his proposal with Kansas Truck Equipment is they're in Wichita, and they do a lot of work. They actually work on the Thomas's for us as well. It's not warranty work. So he spec'd out on the Kansas bus bid site, which is KSDE sponsors that. Three bids as I've outlined there, and back on the page something.
38, 39.
Yeah. Of the three buses, 84.7, 83.9, 88.6. He wanted to go with natural gas, with gasoline, not natural gas, but gasoline instead of diesel. I think it's a fair statement that he's not completely enamored with the DEF and what that brings to the buses, and the challenges that he's got for maintenance and expenses on that. So he wanted to try a gasoline powered bus again. It's been a long time since we ran a gasoline powered bus, but that was Jerome's recommendation. So he visited again after pricing these, speccing these out on the Kansas Bus Purchasing Program. And Kansas Truck then offered a 2020 brand new, it's not a used bus, it's new, but it's a 20 model, 65 passenger, the same thing that he expect out of this latest round. And they would sell it, and they have it in stock for $78,800. So we feel like that's a great move for us, and it's available. So my recommendation, pending any questions, would be to approve the purchase of the 2020 model for $78,829 from Kansas Trucking Equipment in Wichita. So any questions?
So I make a motion. I move that we accept the bid from Kansas Truck for the 2020 bus for $78,829.
Second.
Leslie, second. All those in favor? 5-0.
Who seconded?
Leslie, second. Angie.
Made the motion.
Chair request, out-of-state clinic.
I shared a little bit of information on this last month, and we've gathered some more information. Raleigh and Andy may have something they want to say or stand for questions that you might have as a board. The girls, as I said, really the only thing that they didn't do by protocol would have been to announce this as an idea and a fundraising goal beforehand and get some permission, but they did work hard. They've done it on their own weekends. They've made most of their money at the rodeo, doing concession stands at the rodeo, high school rodeos this past fall. They have $9,500 in their account right now, and they expect to have, they're going to have another, one more concession stand that they've been averaging between $2,500 and $3,500 in profit per concession stand. So they would not be completely depleting the account. They came into the account with $2,500 to $3,000 when the year started. I think is a fair statement, if I recall. Do you recall that?
I think it was a little more than that, but pretty close.
So they also plan to have a clinic, and they've even made arrangements, reached out with the KU cheerleaders, as they're allowed, once the pandemic relaxes, that they can come down and help do a clinic for elementary and middle school students and high school. We know, and they know, there's a desire to grow the cheerleading, the numbers of kids that are on cheerleading, and it's just kind of been a rough year. It's hard to get kids wanting to do it. We've had obviously part of the year where we haven't been allowed to have cheerleaders even, some games. So anyway, after Raleigh and Andy talking to the cheer sponsor, Missy, their recommendation is to support the trip. It's going to be completely self-sufficient from their funds, and it's on summertime time, so it's not losing any school time. So that will be my recommendation to the board, is to approve this trip. They're not asking for any money from the district beyond what they've raised that's in the high school activity fund.
So how is this gonna work? Are they going to, the girls that make cheerleader for next year, are they including them in the,
No.
okay? So how's that gonna work? When you have half your squad going to one camp and then, because typically what a summer camp is for your entire squad.
It's a skills clinic is what this thing is. Is that a fair statement?
A fair statement. Also, at the same time, in the past, we've done tryouts.
Right.
Also, in the last several years, we've had people join the team in August when they come back to school. So we've done some fluctuating on that. Is it necessary to do tryouts? But we do understand we want to know who's part of our team going into the summer. So we've been pondering a thought about, what do we do? Do we do some form of tryout, or do we do some sort of team bonding, team effort to start the team, but it's not a finalized team until August?
For a trip like this, it's not unusual that anybody knew they weren't there for part of the fundraising. So oftentimes that becomes an out-of-pocket expense. Be it a van, taking a van trip to, I know this firsthand. I had a daughter that moved to Dodge City and was there for the late stages of a trip to New York. And she had missed all of her fundraising opportunities to get her check off to let the group. So you might guess who got to make it up, which that was only fair to everybody else. It didn't please our pocketbook, but so I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I guess my point is, I went to the ball game the other night, and I don't know what the breakdown is, but I do know that, I mean, we have 3 cheerleaders. I'm thinking, okay, we need to build our cheerleading program. And I'm not sure sending our 3 cheerleaders to Florida, granted, I completely understand they raise the money, and I guess that's what they started, that's why they raise that money. But when you see Pratt over there with 8, and there are, And
It looked good.
and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I mean, I was at the girls' game and our cheerleaders came in late. And it just bothers me that we need to, I mean, I feel like we need to grow our program. And I just don't know if spending $10,000 to go to Florida for 3 girls is how we're gonna grow that program.
Okay.
But I'm one, so.
I commend them for the money they raise. I know those rodeos, I grew up around it, that's a lot of time that those girls spent. I commend them for that, I do. I know that this says pending safe pandemic travel and CDC restrictions at that time, but we literally canceled baseball without Sedgwick County even having 1 case yet. I mean, there was no questions asked, it was canceled. I specifically remember Erica saying, I think it'll be here in 2 weeks, and not a week later, Sedgwick County finally got their first one. And here we're planning travel, knowing that this isn't going away. And our boys were driving, did the parents understand that, I mean, there'll be one cheerleader that has a parent there, but the other 2, what happens are they even capable of able to go down to Florida if there's a problem like we were gonna require our baseball parents? Like, we set a precedence when we made that, no, you can't travel during the pandemic. That's my take on it, but again, I commend them for raising the money. I know it's hard and it was a lot of work.
And keep in mind, the money will remain in their account if they don't go.
Understood.
Simply meaning that for future long-range planning or even next year or something like that. So it's not like the money's gone to raise for no reason whatsoever. They'll have, so I understand where you're coming from, so.
How old are these girls? How old are our 3 cheerleaders?
Sophomores right now.
I guess the only thing that I might bring up, and I'm just going back to when I was in high school. Why did we do youth in government? Because we wanted to go to Topeka. Why did we do FBLA? Because we wanted to go on that trip. And I don't know Missy's intention for this, so I'm speculating. But is this maybe her way of making cheerleading a very enticing thing? Like, hey, she is maybe trying to build a program and this is something, hey, you want to be a part of us? Because we're going to go do these fun things. And maybe that's her way of trying to build some more support and maybe making it a little bit more enticing. Or that's just a thought. And so if we do want to build a program, what's going to attract more students to it? And a lot of times that's incentives like going on trips and doing those fun activities.
The caution to that would be, you talk about precedents.
Baseball gets to go every 2 years.
Are we going to expect to go to Florida every year,
right.
every other? Because that becomes, this is an expensive game.
Right, but we're not funding and they're not asking for us to put money in the kitty.
Nope.
I think that speaks a lot too. They're not asking us to send them to Florida.
That's what tore us. I think.
But do we really even, those are the 2 that I know of. These are the only 2 tricks I know, is baseball and cheerleading. So I know about FBLA stuff, but
Yeah.
we weren't planning to underwrite a significant amount of the baseball trick where we transportation only. So if we're gonna compare, let's
Right.
Are they going what's the baseball? When's their next?
do next year would be theirs.
I don't know, Raleigh. Do you know what the cycle is? We're on everything's
It's
on
every-
kilter.
It's supposed to be every other year. He hasn't talked about, moving it to this summer or this spring, but I don't see it happening because.
Well, they didn't get to sell peaches this year either.
Because spring training starts in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, but they probably kept the money in the kitty for
right.
last.
I don't know how much they had already put out, they got any of
Oh,
that,
yeah,
but.
yeah. You're right, your point, spring training was also canceled too.
Right.
Baseball's still, their money's still there, same way?
Yes,
I mean, it's,
yes.
All good points. I'm still gonna put my support towards the initiative, whatever it looks like. I mean, initiative looks like what it looks like. We can't for sure say what your next step is, but there was initiative here. There's planning. I always want to help kids do that. I hear the baseball situation, but where I was at the pandemic, when we just didn't know, and all we wanted to do was flatten the curve, and I was all on board with flattening the curve. Now I'm ready to get back to life. So I'm like, we flattened the curve, but I yielded at that because of all the unknowns. I feel like we know more about it now. It was a disappointment. Can't go back and undo that. But I'm ready to get back people doing things. So that's where I'm at. So I'm going to make the motion, but you guys vote however. I move that the board approve the request of the cheerleaders to attend the clinic in Florida in July, pending safe pandemic travel by that time as determined by KDHE and CDC restrictions.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor? Opposed? 32.
Okay, so that does not pass because to pass anything
Takes 4.
takes 4,
But they're not.
So what do you do?
just FYI. So it dies. Right now, it's a.
So do we have,
But what about the two that aren't here?
They're not here, so they didn't vote. If they were here, they could have.
so is this something that we can ask to be put on the agenda, or potentially they can ask to put it on the agenda next month, or?
I'm
I
not,
suppose,
I mean, if that's gonna be the case.
the agenda thing,
Call Diane.
is, I mean, the reason we needed action this month was
She
to
gonna be
spend
here later?
$900 to get their reservations.
Diane should be here later. I guess my thing is I don't want to vote if it doesn't matter.
Well, and I'm just set where, I mean, what I feel, but if I'm a team player, and if the majority is, I would, if the majority of you guys are for it, then I will change if it's gonna crush. So, I mean, if we wanna do another vote, or we wanna,
Jeff and Diane around it.
Yeah, I don't know, we call Diane.
Can we, this agenda thing,
We can
can
come
we,
back to other action.
I was gonna say, can we move it till later?
I think so.
That puts a whole lot of pressure.
Well, yeah, you're right. And that's,
sometimes it happens here.
Well,
I mean,
but everybody's got their right to, how they feel.
Right, and I'm just saying, in a normal situation, but I don't want to be, I definitely don't wanna, like I said, I'm a team player, and if the board is, what I would call the majority is to send them, then. I'll
and
do
it's
it.
like I've told, I mean, you guys are up here with them, it's like Leslie said, the intent that, I feel like you guys, you have some of the insight. I understand where Christy's coming from, and I hated that they did that.
I'm not saying they can't go because we only have 3, we don't have a program.
I get it.
I mean, there's multiple things that come into play, and I
think everything you said was valid.
Yeah,
I
it
think
is.
Angie was very valid, and I think Leslie and Erica were as well. It was tough.
it's not, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm not even sure, is this really something that you had to bring to the board to get approval on?
It's an out-of-state,
Okay.
something new yeah, I felt like it needed your blessing. We don't,
Is this the lesson we want them to get from this? Can we move it to later when we have a chance can we put it in other actions or not? I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah.
Let's do
Okay,
that.
I think we'd all feel better versus.
Yeah, let's do that.
Assuming we get, like, someone shows up.
If not, it
Pressure's
stands.
on
If we
her.
don't have another voter show up, then it stands, I guess.
I think with that, everybody understands the importance of showing up at your board meetings. It takes a 4 vote to do anything. And I guess I didn't realize that.
I thought it was just,
It's
I thought it was a
majority.
majority, I thought it was a majority.
No,
It's a majority of the.
Of the 7.
Entirety of the board?
And that's, I called and visited with Angie today on that and visited with her in depth on some other things. And it takes a 4 vote to move forward on any of this stuff.
Even when you have 2 missing.
Yeah, so that's the reason it's very important that we all show up
I
and
agree.
participate, so, just for the record.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna move that to other actions then.
So if only three showed up to a board meeting, there's no reason to even have them.
You can't have a board meeting anyway.
'Cause you
I knew
can't
that,
do
but.
it. You can't even approve payment of warrants. So. Okay.
Pandemic COVID update.
Cass, I had some information that I thought I would be able to share by today, just more reading material, and then was told and reminded, I suppose, that it's called Navigating Next. You remember the document Navigating Change, which was the document put together by educators across the state in a rapid form in March. Navigating Next is something that is another guidance document. It's not going to be 1,000 pages, but the active plan for getting schools back open. A lot of times it doesn't seem completely relevant to us because as I talk to people across the state, across the nation, I was asked today by the Learning Council, which was an organization that we were recognized by down in Florida. Dennis and Andy got to go to a national gathering, what was that, 3 or 4 years ago, to receive recognition for the technology advances and our approach to technology. They called, they wanted me to sit on a panel. I sat on one last summer for a national panel. They called on me to sit on a panel to talk about what we've learned from our hybrid educational approach, to which I had to tell them I haven't learned much of anything because we have been blessed by not having to go hybrid. So you might need to find somebody else. I can talk about some other things, but I can't really talk intelligently about that because I know from experience. KSDE, this Navigating Next is going to be some guidance on how to, we've been talking about how to utilize these new resources that we have at our fingertips, including testing and to do screening testing with the rapid tests and or the PCRs, peace of mind and assurances that kids and staff are healthy or not with COVID, especially with everybody, so many people getting vaccines. We probably have about 60 to 70% of our staff fully vaccinated at this point in time. So I'm just telling you firsthand, I feel better about that. I feel just a smidge safer myself. I know it's not a guarantee, but and I sure wish we can't wait to get to the point where we don't feel like we've got to wear masks around each other, but I know that's going to be a piece. And that's one of the pieces that KSDE and KDHE are still emphasizing is you're still going to have to wear masks for a while longer, be patient. But the goal again is to get everybody in school. I listened to the president talk about this goal of getting everybody back in school within his first 100 days in office. And I reflect on we've been there, we're there, and we've been there, and how have we done it? And I think I know how we've done it. It hasn't been easy, but it's been good. Our stay in school quarantine option. We've received a lot of feedback from that, more positive than negative or concerns. And we've tested a few kids, not a lot, but we've tested enough, and we're monitoring, keeping track of our data of that. And the reason we did that model was because exactly the conversation we've been talking about. And it's what the state shared some information this past week. Again, it goes back to the numbers of cases of people that have been exposed, that have been close contacts of a confirmed positive, that especially if they're non-household close contacts, how many of them have gone on to quarantine and not popped up positive. And so, again, it's like Leslie said, we're learning more. And with that knowledge, we have to, our plan and our response has to evolve. And And it is, even though at the same time, we're still at the point of the masking and the distancing is still essential. But we're still keeping the doors open when other places aren't. So our data for gating, we're the second week in a row that we've downward trended for the county. 3 weeks ago, it took a pretty good spike and we're dropping down. So the Department of Health, Kingman County Department of Health, commended us and said they recommend staying the course. They trust us. Our teachers have been very observant, and just so you know, our stay in school quarantine option, not everybody's qualified for it, and we've actually had to pull it from somebody that we agreed to because of being seen out. Did they get tattled on? Yeah, you could call it that, but they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. Probably 90% of the quarantining response is an honor system. We expect people to you gotta tell the truth. And some people don't. Some people won't come, won't be forthcoming, and that's what causes the problem. So I think I'm confident that we're continuing to move in the right direction. And I will share as soon as we get this revised guidance out. I'll share that with you all, just so you know. So,
Hey, Max, I was just trying to find it and couldn't. One of the Friday notes, and maybe I read it wrong, there was a student that we didn't test because there's something about a student we didn't test, and then there was something about they were out in public without a mask, maybe. Does that ring a bell, or am I like totally imagining that Friday note?
Is that what you're talking about?
I'm not sure.
I was trying to click, I can't find it. I think it was after the last board meeting, but there was something about we tested we tested some teachers, and then we've tested some students, but there's a student we chose not to test or something because of, I wish I could find it. So sorry I brought it up. I thought maybe it was registered, but
I know we had confirmed positive, close contact, not a confirmed positive. And then after going through the process, the steps and signing off, and again, it's an honor, the assurance. They were spotted out at White's
okay, maybe that
grocery store, which it's gotta be important enough to you to come to school, to be able to come to school. That has to be your highest priority, or come to work. But we're pretty well talking about kids. My daughter, she's got perfect timing, Ashley. How many times have I told you guys this? That she calls on the second Monday during the board meeting. Sorry.
For 20 years.
So.
It ain't like it just happened yesterday.
Yeah, how many years?
And she's 32.
So, it's okay.
She just needs dad.
I was gonna say, when you need your dad, you need your dad.
I call my dad when he's on a 20-foot ladder on a 12-pitch roof, and he's like, seriously, are you dying like right now? Okay, call me back.
Imagine right about now it's soaking in. What day is today? Daughter, she's
Or maybe she's doing it to be honest.
she has SLP job, and maybe she's calling to say she's doing that job for working for a school district. So anyway, this is live. I'm telling everybody in the world. So anyway, that goes back to that conversation, and Karen Allen, that's one of the things that she's really enjoyed about the opportunity to do the stay in school option, is her opportunity to educate kids on the importance of and the mitigation of what they're committing to, and the parents.
So Max, I kind of have a question about it. the stay in school option and the testing and everything.
Okay.
So it sounds, I'm assuming Karen is doing the testing on the students that are doing the stay in school and to allow them continue to do activities. But how are we, and I guess I don't need real specifics, but I'm assuming that information is being like given to teachers and other people, like this is someone that we're kind of keeping an eye on.
Uh-huh.
And so is that kind of being passed along, or how is it being passed along? Because, I mean, I know we have to be sensitive because it's personal information,
We do.
but then also making sure that, that the right people know to make sure everybody's kind of following the guidelines.
Okay, first thing we do is survey staff to get their opinion. Is that a fair statement, Tammy, Andy, Heidi? To get their opinion of, does this kid that's a candidate, if you will, for staying in school, do they follow the rules? Do they wear their mask? Do they wear it correctly? Do they stay distanced? Do they, and if the answer to that is, so, then we stop right there. If it's, yeah, they do a great job, and we think it would be helpful, then we move forward, and then the steps are they get tested, in the morning.
Yes.
It's not always Karen, because it depends on, Haley does it at Kingman High School. Tammy or Heidi or Brenda do it administered at Norwich.
If there's other times, I'll go up there too.
Raleigh's gotten quite good at doing the rapid testing. We have the spit test for the PCR that we'll do, if it's day 6 or after, we'll do a rapid test and a PCR if they want it. And then if they come up negative on the PCR, which WSU, the lab over there is so far a real quick turnaround. I mean, less than 12 hours. So if they're doing sports, we have a game that night, we test them again before the game. So then they get 2 rapid tests in that
So,
day.
but coaches and teachers are in the loop.
And
This is
coaches and
somebody-
teachers, they're made aware. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a student that has been remote and is on a team. And so I was doing the testing down here at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I would text the coaches to let them know that this particular athlete had tested negative again, so they were.
But they were good. to
And Erica, we had open gym yesterday, so for boys basketball, had open gym yesterday, so I went up there and tested those students too.
Before they got to,
Yes.
because we wouldn't ordinarily, on a Saturday or Sunday, if there's no activity going on, we weren't gonna test, but.
And Coach Freed called me and asked me, so yes, coaches are in the loop.
They're in the-
Cool. Good. And again, we've gotten positive feedback.
I mean, I'm all for whatever keeps them active, and
Yeah.
keeps them engaged, and keeps them in school and in
It does
activities.
work pretty well.
That PCR saliva test is terrible.
I-
Oh, it's a lot. You can't wait to eat or drink 30 seconds. It is like, no, I'm not kidding. It's like,
Do you have to spit quite a bit?
oh yeah, like it
No,
takes, I have to do it every 2 weeks for work up here at the drugstore, yes.
Why don't you
And
just tell them to?
So you're doing
I'm actually ready to go. Do what?
Wow.
So you're doing survey, so if we've ordered the nasal pharyngeal and the oral pharyngeal, just to have, okay, because they talked about how difficult it is to work up. When you haven't had anything in your mouth for 30 minutes, you haven't.
30 minutes or more, yeah.
Eat anything.
Bad, pretty dry.
And then the workup, and it's a, what is it, a milliliter? A half a point,
But if there's like, I mean, it's,
there's a little
Very
conical tube that you gotta spit in, and you're supposed to
but if
fill
there's
that.
bubbles, they still have to go above the line, so it's
Sounds
terrible.
wonderful.
It doesn't hurt.
no, it doesn't hurt, but I'm ready for the hurt just so it's faster.
The one that I administered, I think more went out onto the table. You go ahead and put it in your mouth and hit the hole. It's not big, it's not a big tube, it's not like,
Yeah,
so probably.
fun stuff, especially every 2 weeks.
The hoops were done.
So that's my update as of the moment.
Administration reports. Do we have anything, comments, questions?
I did have one for, who else was it? Drew blank. Amy.
Let's go to, Christie, you asked about prom.
Yeah, I just asked because I have literally done nothing.
Andy, where we at on your prom?
Where we're at with our prom is that we need to figure out, we want to have something if we can, but we would need to figure out, okay, what are our guidelines for saying, yeah, you can come, yeah, you can't. There are schools that are putting out procedures of saying you can come, but you need to take a rapid test before you come to the dance. So there's
We have the breath test, breathalyzer test, and now we're talking a rapid test, which is, and that's what we need to decide, is that reasonable?
Yeah.
If they take long, it's not hard. but
There will be some that will say, oh, well, I'm not doing that, and then, so are you.
I don't know, I want them to have a prom. I'll just say it, I want them to have a prom. And however we can do that, I want to do it.
I know we've
I feel
had,
they need it.
there's schools that have talked about having prom, pushing it back to June, just in hopes that things are gonna be, or they can have it outside. We talked about renting a big
We've been
tent.
hoping for a year. It's been almost a year we've been hoping.
I know.
You remember this a year, well, 11 months ago, we're like, yeah, I don't know about kicking anything out till June, and I don't know what it's gonna look like or who's gonna tell us what, but if we can have proms and go back to something.
Well, our plan is to have ours March 27th. We have moved it to the landing. It's much bigger, spread out, can social distance, and take into account those things. So,
You were considering, because I think in the past, Norwich invites the senior parents. You still considering
parents
not
of-
inviting them?
right now we are, because the parents are there at ball games.
Right?
I don't.
I think it needs to be as normal as we can, whatever that looks like.
I think you guys have worked out a nice meeting in the middle for who's paying for what, since the last year's juniors didn't get to spend much of anything. They wasted a little money on, this year's seniors wasted a little money on glassware that was printed, but they didn't have food, so.
So they graciously are allowing the juniors to use that money for the prom this year. So
That does nice.
We've gotta have some money in the CARES, that's a COVID-related expense.
yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
very.
You wanna get,
I appreciate, we started out with just, would you be willing to do, food? And they said yes. And then, the closer it got and the fundraising just isn't there. So the senior sponsor surveyed the senior class and they were willing to give more money, and so they're really working together.
And they should, they got plenty of money.
Yeah,
In the account, so.
Yeah.
Have you guys had any talking about that at all, Andy?
No, our prom ended until mid-April, so we're still,
What about the money and
all about the money, no.
the seniors that
So we're still in mid-April.
still have last year's money?
No, we have not.
Okay.
Did you think about what you wanted to ask her?
Yes.
All right.
I forgot my
That's
question.
my question for virtual
Amy.
Amy.
Oh, yeah, okay, so the CTE thing, you guys all know about it. But when I got to go with Riley 2019, that was when I learned about HOSA. That's one of the CTE organizations. So I don't know if I'm gonna have time, but I wanna have the links or whatever to watch this. And then I also wanted to tell, that's the health, I should have looked it up. What is
It's the
it?
health science pathway.
Say it again.
It's the health science pathway CTSO.
Okay, so, yeah, but HOSA was the name of their, like FFA is the name of the ag one, but HOSA is the name of the health
And
one.
It's kind of a weak, it's probably one of the weakest students.
Don't matter, we'll make it strong. I
Or
just want
in
people
the
to know
state,
about it.
in the state.
Oh, yeah, and that, you know.
They're trying to work on that.
We ebb and flow. But that's when we can, I mean, the kids learn the skills and they do a little bit of a competition, you know, so they take, you know, meaningful things and they feel a little bit more pressure because it's in a contest setting.
But then
And
it's just teachers and admin?
no, students do this too, but with our athletic trainer and, you know, just the cooperation that we've had when we were able to do, what was it that we did with the hospital?
The medical,
Academy?
The pieces are all there. I just want to like keep elevating, bringing them to the attention so we can go ahead and go another direction. But, you know, we have FFA, we have the
BLA.
Yep, and the home ec one.
FCCLA.
I want to do HOSA too for the kids. So anyway, I just want to keep bringing it to attention and we just have a lot of resources there, a lot of pieces and it may not be the strongest state.
They're wanting to work on it though.
But, you know, maybe we're the leaders who kind of take it to the next, you know, our involvement can always help even on another level, district level or state level. I'm never afraid of that, so.
What's it stand for again?
Health and science.
Health.
Organization.
It's HOSA, I can't quite, it's HOSA.
And this week is the health science day, because I know Emily Warner, our health science person down at Norwich is attending this, doing the CTE conference courses.
I know like Bishop Carroll has a health academy,
Uh-huh.
and they actually have students at St. Francis and St. Joe for like a semester, and they go almost once a week, and they're with the nurses. I mean, but then they have like classroom time where they're doing didactic. It's a very robust program, so I knew it can be done. And it is it's a cool, and it's not just nurses, so don't, you know what I mean?
Health, occupation, students of America, you got it.
There's lots of,
Health, occupation, students of America. So it's our athletic training, you know, we got a lot of kids. I remember Brent did marbles, everybody wants to be an athletic trainer, you know, so and just that network that we have with the hospital. So anyway, one of the CTE options that gets a whole nother, you know, spectrum.
That's where the pandemic has really
Oh, I know.
screwed a lot of
You don't have
things
to tell
up.
me
'Cause
that.
we had, this is my soapbox rumination, but we got some good things going and some interest 2 summers ago. Andy facilitated that and Chisholm was involved in that. We had neat stuff going on at Kingman Elementary School with redesign and Bill and I talked a little bit about that today, I think, you know, looking forward to when we get to return and people, you know, that wanted to come visit us and see what we were doing. So we remain optimistic that it's not too far into the future, but it's screwed a lot of things up, put things on the slam the brakes on.
We'll get back there. Hopefully. Yeah, I'm not saying it has to happen next week.
Well, it's on the radar for sure.
Yeah.
This is the time that, you know, because Amy's learning CTE and Tammy's releasing the CTE. So it goes back to the experience and the knowledge that she's got, but this is a year the state kind of gave us a little bit of a reprieve. So question, I guess, to you for working with Amy is that something that can we add something to the pathway? I mean, I know.
That's just you can do that that doesn't really have anything to do with the improvement plan.
Okay. just want to make sure, so. And I would imagine they would want the more the merrier. Okay,
On the after-school grant, the 21st Century Grant, which I think is awesome that you guys are writing that, is that, I mean, up to 100,000 a year is a lot.
Yeah.
There are people that, I mean, do we feel confident in us doing it ourselves, writing the grant, or is it, to me, that's worth?
Well, here's where we're at with our latest conversation, because you're exactly right. I mean, do we feel confident writing it in the next 4 weeks? No. It's due in about a month. And so our conversation has been, because the teachers are on board, everybody's on board. You know, I've talked to Max a little bit about this, and the conversation now is, let's see if we can let's put together here in the next couple of months, assuming we can do it this summer, but put together a small summer program and get started there and spend the time from now until this time next year to put together the kind of grant we need to put together. And if we need to get some outside help,
That's what I was gonna say is.
or wherever, to do that and do it right. And I think Kevin coming in, I think he's got some experience with some different programs as well, so. That's our latest.
Those grant writers that come in and help are worth their weight in gold, because they generally nail the grants, and a friend of mine is one, that's what she does contract wise, and so if it's $100,000, a lot of money to spend a couple $1,000s to get some expertise in grant writing, and so I would be 110% for it even if we wanted to shoot for it for, I know it's due in a month, which is a lot, but, I have a great contact and it's not even, I don't even care if it's her, if she gave us the name of someone else, but I think it's well worth the money to invest in that type of stuff.
this particular grant, having some experience in not getting it and working with writing it, and we've used the grant writer before. And it's kind of one that's been touch and go, where you write and they have the meetings and they train, they tell you this is what you need to do. It's specific prep for it. And there's not very many things I'm cynical about, and I'm optimistic because they've been pushing this one this year, but we've had a couple of times where after everything was said and done, and oops, it wasn't funded. It wasn't us that wasn't funded, the whole grant wasn't funded. So it kind of deflates you after the second time, which is why when they said they wanted to go for it, knock yourself out, guys, and I'm going to be here cheering on the sidelines. But I'd love to be wrong. I hope it gets funded. I really do, and I think your plan is more realistic, probably.
Well, again, and I go back to the staff. They were almost to a person are on board with something, but the thought of taking on something as early as this summer and then all next year, I mean, they seemed overwhelmed with it. Even if they aren't the ones writing it, that's a lot to absorb right now. But they were really excited about doing something this summer. Actually, we have more people to help than we could probably put to work.
Yes, we did, with what, 15?
I think it's great. I think it's something this district really lacks, and I'm excited to see it be an opportunity, so.
And we were honestly hoping, since we put it off, but we thought there's some local fund, maybe the ESSER, I know you're gonna talk about that later, but we thought there may still be local options to fund it ourselves this year and get a really good plan, and how much better we can write the grant when we can say, not, this is what we plan to do, we've done this is how it works, this is how it flows,
right.
So.
I think it's great.
Okay.
Superintendent report.
I want to talk to you about a couple of items. ESSER will be the first thing that I've talked to you a little bit about, or quite a bit about, the CARES money. So get used to the term ESSER. ESSER 1, just to jog your memories, we got $149,000 this past spring and summer to spend on COVID-related expenses. Then we were advised to put our expenditures that would come out of that ESSER one monies on the back burner, because there was an opportunity for something that I think you all heard about, which was Spark money. And so we in districts across the state took advantage of that. I'm very thankful to our county commissioners, because they're even though that money was for entities within the county, there was quite a bit of latitude, if you will, on exactly what the county commissioners approved. Richard Schott was the facilitator, the local guy, Erica's dad, full disclosure. He took care of, I feel like he took care of us, not special treatment so much as just making sure that we were at the front of the line, if you will, and as soon as he heard something that we needed to hear, he shared that. The reason I spend so much time talking about Spark is because, again, a lot of school districts that felt like they should have gotten significant Spark money didn't from their county commissioners, and they're quite hurt by that. We got $313,000 and change out of that, so that enabled us to reallocate some other monies. Our ESSER one monies, which I did refer to as CARE, but we're going to get into the habit of ESSER one, ESSER, ESSER one. We had 149,000 of that, about 10,000 of it, a little less, went to St. Pat's. And we have not spent all of our ESSER one money. We're going to be doing that, and as a team, as a board, we're meeting later this month. We're going to involve stakeholders, our staff, to get feedback from them on what they feel like would be good use of this money. There's some strings attached, and all the money's got to be COVID related, and I'll go into that in just a little bit. Our ESSER 2 funds are going to be made available to us in March the 1st is when they're going to start, but the state is going to, KSDE is going to really help us out from a standpoint. They're not going to prevent us from getting money. Our allocation, USD 331s, and it's based on a federal funds program funding formula, and the amount that we're projected to get for ESSER 2 is $655,000. It's a pretty good chunk of change. And so 149 was 655. The Spark is separate, 313. But that's what we know we're going to have or be getting. One of the things that we've talked about as to how to spend that is, again, the direction from the powers that be is you got to really think about this, and it's got, your first priority has to be students and students' families that have been seriously negatively affected or impacted by COVID. You know, there were districts that talked about, you know, we haven't had any gates at the basketball games, so can we use ESSER money to underwrite the general fund, the loss of revenue? You know, because we'll still spend 20 grand on referees at Kingman High School's basketball games and Norwich's. And the short answer is no. You can't replace that loss of revenue for athletics out of the COVID money. So there's certain things that, you know, we were probably getting a little bit too creative. So that's why we're going to have to be well thought out as to what the plan is, how we're going to spend these monies, and how we're going to justify to auditors why this money was essential to recovery in response to COVID. So there's 15 areas that will qualify as reasonable expenses. We can all, you guys' gears are creative as well, and some of them we'll probably find out we can't. So anyway, what I jumped off of when I was telling you that the state is helping us out, they're developing an application form, so to speak. And the reason I say so to speak is because it's going to detail out, we're going to have to detail out as we draw that money down, why we want it, what we're going to use it for, how we used it, how it specifically was used for the purpose intended. And it's going to go before a committee for approval. And that committee, if it doesn't get approved, it's not like the 21st Century Community of Learners Grant, where we just lost out. This money is still going to be ours, but they're giving us very close mentorship or guidance on how it's going to be spent. So they may turn us back and say, "Yeah, that's probably not going to work." So again, I'm talking about stuff and there's a lot of unknowns. The details are absolutely not worked out, but for the things that we kind of thought about, they made suggestions. We know that a building, the climate, the HVAC, the air handling and ventilation in schools is so vitally important. And that falls within one of the 15 areas that you can use the CARES money, ESSER money for. But again, the guidance is going to be, don't make that your first expense. Spend some money directly on kids, which is why administratively, we spent quite a bit of time the other day talking about extended school year, summer school. Some of the stuff that Bill and Amy talked about, 21st Century School of Learners, the after school, extended school year. But this is something that I think we will end up spending, ultimately recommending spending money for those types of things as well. It can be a lot of money if there's a lot of strings attached, or not very much, depending on what kind of a project you get into. We know $600,000 is not going to solve all of our ventilation, HVAC, and problems with our buildings. We know that if we addressed all of our HVAC issues across the district with aging systems, we feel like about $6 million, it literally would solve most of our problems for the next 15 to 20 years. And we're not getting anywhere close to 6 million, so 600 just touches just barely touches it. So we know that we have until September the 30th of 2024 to spend ESSER 2 money. So this money, it can be spread out for quite a while, so we have plenty of time to be thoughtful. ESSER 1, we have until September 30th of 2023. So for our purposes, about 31 months beyond. We know, just done some calculation, ESSER 1 for fiscal year 20, which we're fiscal year 21, we got about $19,000. Fiscal year 21, this 21-22, between that ESSER, if we are going to distribute this money out equitably over the life of when we have to spend it, we'd have about an extra $142,000 to spend. Fiscal year 22, we would have, which would be 22-23, about $316,000. Fiscal year 23, about 268,000. And then ESSER 1 is done. ESSER 2, there's only $63,000 left for that last portion in the fiscal 24. So we know that the ESSER 1, our allocation You can look at it per month, would be $5.72 per kid, per student. ESER two, $25.02 per month. So when you break it down into bite-sized pieces, what can we do for each kid to benefit each kid? The total allocation per student for ESER two is $775. Sound like as much then as 55,000. There is, as part of the stimulus package that's being debated right now, there is a suggestion that a district like ours, and again, this is very, very unofficial, probably shouldn't even say it, but of about twice to 2.5 times what ESER two is what ESER three would bring to us. So could be another $1.5 million to us. So again, we've got to be, we can't sit around for 2 years thinking about what our priorities are. We're going to get busy on it. And again, I can share with you guys as a board. I'll do that, say in Friday notes of what the 15 uses are. All of them, they're written in kind of semi-general terms. So many of us look like that opens it up for a lot of creative discussion. Again, we got to be able to stand in front of an auditor and explain to them how it benefited kids. And it should, so. That's it for my ESER updates. Calendar spring 21, I said in Friday notes, and I misspoke, or as a result of administrative getting together last week. The dates that I said that the State Board of Education authorized school districts to add up to 3 professional learning days into this semester, because every district in the state lifted all their professional learning days, just about all of them, and put it at the beginning of the school year so they could get planning in place, and you as a board thankfully allowed us to do that as well. What we rapidly learned is that as a school, we need some time to plan for the future and to plan for the present. We know that we're being asked, how do we know what the level of performance of our kids as a collective group are? How far behind are they from where we would expect them to be? We've got data. We just don't have the ability to really the time to do that. And teachers they're pretty tired mentally with all of this process as well. So anyway, what I shared in the Friday notes a couple of weeks ago was that we would like to add 3 days into the spring calendar to have no school with kids and have professional learning opportunities. One of the things that we'll have on the agenda is teacher input on ESER 1 and ESER 2 and expenditures. But March, I said February the 22nd, and the administrative team has decided that February the 15th would be a better date. They feel like I said March 22nd, and we've elected to request that, change that to April the 5th and then April the 26th. The state board has a deadline of April 30th to be able to add these. So what our request is, or for consensus, is if you could find it to support us canceling school on Monday, February the 15th. We know that that's only a week away, giving parents notice. And we're uncomfortable with that, but at the same time, we feel like we have a legitimate agenda planned out for these days, for teachers to collaborate and to work on things that are going to benefit the district. So
my only question is this: I got a text probably an hour before the the board meeting about, like this week, it's anticipating terrible, cold, just miserable weather. So do we, like, I know at one time you said that, maybe if we have to have a snow day so we don't have to extend school year or something, we would go remote, correct? That we have that capability to do that.
Yeah.
So if we, like, Thursday and Friday is not supposed to be great weather whatsoever.
Tomorrow's not.
And tomorrow's not. The whole week just sucks. If we cancel school, if we agree to the professional development days, which I fully support, they need them, but I just don't want to get us in a point where now we have a bunch of snow days, we've now canceled school for a professional development day, and then they're like, oh, well, we have to shorten spring break by a day or 2 days, or, is that all that taken into consideration when we're looking at this stuff?
We've, not as a group, but we've had conversation with 2 or 3 of what we're gonna do this week, because it's icy and it's bitter cold, and we know people in Iowa and Minnesota have no sympathy for us whining about 5 degrees, but there's a lot of considerations. Buses sliding into, we don't think anybody. Yeah, would probably freeze, get frostbite, because we'd be out to get a bus out pretty quick, but we know that kids are driving. We know that the dirt roads are ice roads now. I don't know, Leslie, how was your road?
Rock hard. We can get around in it, but it's got lots of ruts and stuff, and now they're frozen ruts.
They're deep.
They're a mess.
I drove that way
You
today.
did,
Christie, how
do
good.
that again. But it wasn't.
It's great when it's frozen. Once it thaws, that's,
And it's probably
That's
not
what they have to
until
worry about
next week, it doesn't sound like. I don't know how,
23rd.
you're on Main Street, they didn't do anything north on Main. It was pretty slick, wasn't
it
it?
was very slick.
That's my driveway.
You know, if we don't ask Tab about how the roads were, to slow them down, because
It wouldn't.
we're not gonna get up.
70 going south.
Oh my God.
I just, like I said, I know, you said the parents, it's pretty sure notice cancel on the 15th. It's also, just say that we're gonna flip the switch and go remote the next day is also a lot for parents of, especially little ones, mine, the ones that have older ones, like a few of us.
We originally, our grand plan was, we wouldn't have any, there's no reason to have snow days ever again.
No.
Terrible. They need
And then we had our first
days.
kind of snow day that was crappy weather, and we went ahead and did the snow day because we felt like the social emotional, the teachers needed a break. That was in October, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
early on.
And today we obviously didn't have school, so it was a non-issue for today. I would have been up half the night fretting about it if we had school scheduled. It's just like tomorrow, we're talking, what are we gonna do? Because a 2-hour late start is not going to
It's not gonna help anything.
help melt anything.
Like I said, I got that question of, because this week is gonna be a lot of days, if they turn into snow days, and if we turn around and we don't have school, and then we cancel again on Monday so they can have their PD day. I just don't wanna get a situation that, maybe we should have had that one day of school and looked at that PD day maybe next year. I just curious if we're taking all that into consideration.
We're trying to be sensitive to it. We never know about this, obviously, the snow
Right.
days.
Does
And-
PD day count as an instructional day then?
Huh?
The PD day counts as an instructional
They
day.
do, we're not
Okay.
gonna make those
Yes.
days up. That's the thing that the state did for us, is they allowed us to count hour for hour,
Okay, well then that answers
all
my
day.
Yeah.
Because typically in the past, a PD day, you only count half. So if you have a 7.5, you have an 8-hour school day, you get 4 hours counted towards your 1116 hours. They're allowing us to count all 8 hours, not 8, all 7 hours towards that. Our thinking right at this point is, if we didn't have school, and the people that are watching on the internet, if at this moment, if we didn't have school all week, I'm not saying we're not going to, or that we're going to cancel, I'm just saying we would definitely do remote part of this week. we feel like the kids are pretty well trained and they've been taking their devices home. You can speak to that as well.
Yeah, it's super fun, the have to tell them to get off of it.
So we could go remote and count that time as well this week. You know, the weather's not good enough to really go out and have a lot of fun sledding.
My kids were on the trampoline when I left.
Yeah.
Mine were on the trampoline when I left, it's fine.
Control us from what we've done.
Cast in your future.
That's at home, I'm fine.
So, are we okay, or do you want us to wait? Do you feel better about waiting until February the 22nd?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, we'll make that announcement tomorrow. Calendar for 21-22, just let you know, ordinarily, it's usually February or March that we share. Professional counsel is who works on that, and as a board, it comes back to you to ultimately set the start and the end dates for school, how the days are used within that start end window. I guess what I'd ask from you guys is, do you have strong thoughts about, in the past, we never wanted school going basically the last week of March, May, not March, May. And we kind of, we wanted the semesters pretty evenly distributed. Do you have thoughts on starting or end dates that are you feel strongly?
As long as they go back.
We're not keeping them.
I'll provide you with
Good guidelines.
the teacher group, professional counsel. We'll
Try to make it easy on you.
we'll have a recommendation of a calendar by the March meeting.
So I know it's not part of your super report, but it's gonna be here before we know it, graduation. Sorry, senior parents. But have we had any consideration of doing it outside again? That was awesome.
I'd rather do it outside. I don't like, they used to do it nice.
You what?
I won't say how long.
Our goal is to have it on the day that we have on the calendar.
Outside?
May the 8th or something.
What was the feedback from the parents? I guess
Did we get any?
What was the feedback from our graduates and the families?
Didn't hear any, well, the only complaint was it was hot.
It was hot.
I know, but if we do it in May.
It's different weather
We're not
than it is
gonna
in July.
have that, 12,000 degrees, we're all sweating. I thought it was kind of cool.
I think it, and I heard a lot of compliments on it, it looked a lot better than the gym, and so I just wanna, I'd like us to have it outside.
I'm not sure the stage would be available. I reached out to see what his schedule looks like. He does great band graduation, which could possibly be that day.
Well, if we just book it
I think the
now,
sound
everybody
system.
can't have it.
Here's money, COVID related.
There you go.
There you go.
And then ask him for a contact if he can't do it. I'm sure he knows other people.
Yeah,
Maybe our shop class has
So-
something to do to build one.
Hello.
Andy and I talked about it. And Tammy, we talked about inside versus outside. We knew inside, we'd still have to limit people. They're spreading out. What were you thinking, Andy? Could you do 10 tickets or inside?
Oh, for inside, well, with senior class of 34 this year,
Yeah, that's right.
so we would be able to have probably more per student.
I don't want to limit on
But
graduation.
it'd be fewer than what you could get outside, definitely.
And I just don't think that that's a good time to try to limit it,
I don't either.
seriously.
I
We
think
can
we
do it
should do
outside and
outside.
allow families to safely gather.
It's a last minute to go back inside, but
I'm not gonna.
If we're, keep in mind, if we schedule it outdoors,
We have to have.
we have to schedule, we have to be set up for indoors in the
I
event of
agree.
inclement weather. Which, that would be, I think our plan B would have to be, that then becomes our probably a limit, possibly.
I just think if we just communicate that this is our plan, But if it is, this is the X amount we get, and, we're not gonna reschedule due to inclement weather, we're just gonna have to move it inside.
Okay.
I think you look at earlier in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean, in May, you're gonna have more storms in the afternoon, evening, so it needs to be earlier in the morning,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
hopefully over by lunch.
Yep, I agree.
I like that.
And that would hopefully keep you from having the severe weather.
We got 2 high schools. So you guys arm wrestling over who gets to go first?
I believe we got the short stick last year.
That's right. Just stop it, or just start keeping track and
The board took it both times.
Yeah, we
The
did.
troopers would come down there and sit on a 140-degree stage.
Yeah.
And you get IVs in between.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
I thought it was.
It wasn't terrible, but I liked it.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, rather be home.
The district, I want to talk about district office improvement. The downtown, not the downtown, the
Economic development.
economic development's got a small grant that we could possibly qualify for up to $5,000 to help with the facade, the front of the building. One of the things this block is trying to do downtown is to do renovation and make this block on Kingman Main Street look better. I've talked to you for the last couple of years about taking that aluminum facade off the front, and exposing the windows and the brickwork. I feel like I've got a way we can do it that's not gonna cost our budget a penny, because.
But you have to match half.
Well, but I'm also on the chairman of the Downtown Redevelopment Board. And one of the things that we participated in the TIP district since 1999, the district, is in that tax incremental funding process for downtown improvements. And we rewrote the grant, and one of the things that the TIF district has recommended supporting, and all we do is recommend that we have money that's allocated specifically to the TIF district, the Downtown Redevelopment Board. The city commission ultimately holds the purse strings, but they've been supportive of our recommendations of everything that we have done. And the parking garage is something that we did, all the seating, the clock, the splash pad that is gonna go in this summer is part of our, so I'm proud of those things. But as a school, as a government taxing entity, we have the benefit of being able to utilize some of those funds, whereas as not a loan, but as a benefit of the government entity. And so that said, we've got some money that has been earmarked for this building. We got some problems with the building, and the last thing Kingman needs is this building to fall down. That is not the end that's gonna fall down. This is, we've done some work on the back end already to help shore it up. So, that's why I say that we can do it without any
I mean, even if we had to match, I'm for it, but
district tax
Match
dollars. We just need some consensus to move forward with that and get quotes of that, because we'll probably have to be top pointed. But I think it would really be a nice addition to improvement to this block downtown, so. Okay, legislative items to be aware of, there's quite a bit going on, and there's a ton of action in Topeka that may need you guys as board members to reach out to our representatives and senators, because there's the movement afoot is vouchers are really, they're blazing their way through committees, and they're trying to give a lot of money with no strings attached. That's education, public education monies to private schools and even homeschoolers is on the list, that the parents would get X amount of money. And again, just a lot of things going on that as public school educators, we need, they need to know that we're strong advocates for public education, taxpayer dollars being spent on the public schools. So if you feel strongly on that, I can get you some more information as to names and email addresses to reach out to, but we need to keep an eye on that. Also, you talked about trainer, and so need to let you know that Brent is resigning.
I know, I didn't know if we were talking about it yet or not, so.
Raleigh could probably, I think I can speak accurately, he's going back home to work on the farm.
Dad, Dad has some farming opportunities and he's needing a hired man, and Brent said, well, what if I'm the hired man, so.
I think Brent has really thoroughly enjoyed
The kids
Yes.
love him.
They
They just love him to death.
We spread him thin, we knew that from the beginning.
Win.
He's good at what he does, and we've thoroughly enjoyed his teaching, helping teach the athletic training and care and prevention of athletic injuries, et cetera. So I haven't met with Shannon, CEO at the hospital yet, or Molly, to see what the grand plan is.
So are we gonna do that sooner rather than later because Shannon's leaving?
I did not know that. Okay.
I didn't know that, did you know that?
I just, the listing's on the website. It's
She accepted a position with, it's not another hospital, it's like in the association. They want
Closer to
her-
home, maybe.
It's 20 minutes from her house.
You know,
I don't blame her at all. She's
her.
done an amazing job, and she's got the hospital,
Are you still on that board?
I am, yeah.
So is that, obviously we don't know who the new CEO is gonna be because it's not there yet, but, how does that look? So say the new CEO is like, no, I don't wanna take on the partnership. I'm just saying like, we need to figure out, are we willing to, we need one.
We paid a chunk of it. I had talked to, honestly, I had talked to Brent about, felt him out months and months ago. Just kept if we could figure out a way to maybe him work for us.
I'm just saying, whatever it takes to absorb the cost if we have to, you got my support. I'm pretty sure the rest of us probably feel the same way too, but we need one.
It's been huge having someone.
Coaches have appreciated it. I know coaches value it a whole lot more than.
It's been,
I think, but the
Almost.
parents appreciate it too.
Exactly.
They know that they have somebody on site to evaluate these kids and
It's
make
been
sure
so
that they're
nice
safe.
with all the injured, like even Adrian, he contacts you right away and you just,
I think he's afraid to call.
I feel like it's something that it's not a luxury to have, it's a must.
It's a must have.
So the short answer is yes, sooner rather than later. So I'll have updates for that. So, okay.
Okay, thank you. We have an executive session. It'll be to review and discuss confidential personnel files of the individual employee's performance.
Mr. President, I move that we go into executive session and direct the superintendent to bring all recent principal evaluations in for board members to review and discuss confidential personnel files under the individual employee's performance and recommendation exception under coma. I propose we invite the superintendent. We will return at,
I would say that
8:30, 8:28.
it'll be at least a half an hour.
Yeah.
And so,
at 9:05 after a 5-minute break. Will that work?
Okay. It's been moved.
Give that a second.
Oh, second.
Is that Andy?
Yeah, sorry.
Been moved and seconded. We go into executive session.
6 people.
All those in favor? 3, opposed? 33. Motion failed. Administrative contracts.
Typically, February is the month when administrative contracts for principals and assistants are generally extended. My recommendation will be to extend all the principals and assistant principals, all the administrative contracts for the 21-22 school year. As a board, you said you wanted to act on each of them individually. So I've got six action motions. The action will only extend their contract for 21-22. Financial terms would be determined at a later date, preferably, probably after we finish negotiations with teachers. That's been the practice, to look at the percentage given. Administrators have always been okay with that. I'm assuming that they would be, but this is the time to extend principal contracts so we can get busy planning seriously for the coming year.
So, go ahead.
I recommend extending the contract of Bill Kelly as Kingman Elementary Principal for 21-22 school year with salary to be determined at a later date.
I move to extend the contract to Bill Kelly as Kingman Elementary Principal for the 21-22 school year with salary to be determined at a later date.
Second.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded to extend Bill Kelly contract 21-22. All those in favor?
Do you do discussion? Is there any discussion?
You want to discuss it?
I just was gonna say,
Okay.
and then vote. But,
Ken, we don't do that. We probably need to.
probably.
So, is there any discussion? All those in favor? 6-0.
You want me to read it, or does one of you want to read it? So we don't have to
Can we
read it
just-
twice.
Can we just change it to say motion to approve Heidi Howard's contract as presented?
Yeah.
So we don't have to read every paragraph?
Uh-huh.
Motion to approve Heidi Howard's contract as presented?
I'll second.
Been moved by Christie. Seconded by Eric. Any discussion?
And I've chased it down for quite a while. There's a big difference in the raises. The raises were never approved by the board. It was action that had no accountability. There's a big difference in what was given. And I need to have a clear conscience that all players know about it, that they're okay with it. If ones are rewarded in such a way, do other people realize why they weren't rewarded in the same way? We haven't had any of those discussions. If it's not causing hard feelings for them, then I'll let it stop causing hard feelings for me. But in the meantime, I just don't know. I don't know if this is gonna be hard to understand all people, I don't wanna lose a bunch of families because they felt like nobody ever spoke on their behalf. So that's discussion.
I guess as far as not being discussed, it is discussed. It's left up to the superintendent.
Well, not in the bylaws, but
That was by us. That was decided by us. And I don't have a great memory, but I think if we go back and visit that from a board meeting standpoint, that was discussed, and it's been left up to the superintendent to do that. It's kind of like the negotiating team. We're go out as a negotiating team and do that also. So it was discussed, and it's been left up to the superintendent, as I remember correctly. And
there was no expectation on my part that it was going to be a double-digit difference. That just blows me away.
I think it was discussed.
And it violated nepotism as well, so.
I think that if I remember right, we discussed an assistant principal making more than a principal. I do remember that.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
All that was discussed in executive session,
Sure.
but the dollar amounts are public record.
Like I said, if it doesn't cause hard feelings amongst the professionals, then I'll let it go. But I don't know for sure that they have been informed. If they've been informed about the merits that we're looking for to be rewarded highly, if they've been informed of those and given the chance to pursue those, that's probably a healthy professional environment. If they have not, then I can see where it might be disappointing.
Sure.
So, and that's why I asked about evaluations. Because I wanted to know if that stuff was there, you know, and then we run into other legal bells and whistles or whatever.
Sure,
So
sure.
that's why I asked about evaluations, because I wanted to know if they had been informed, if there was a written, yes, I have been informed, if there was any of that. So, and I asked about those on Friday.
And you understand, those are executive, that's the reason we voted on the executive session. Those have to be presented in executive session per KASB. Any further discussion on Heidi Howard? I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor? 5, opposed? 1.
Next one's Tammy.
Motion to extend the contract to Tammy Clark as Norwich, motion to extend Tammy Clark's contract as presented, though, save some time.
Second.
Seconded by Diane. Discussion? I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor? 5, all those opposed? Show 1.
Andy?
Motion to extend the contract of Andy Albright as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor? Show it 6-0.
Amy?
Motion to approve the extension of Andy Wallace's contract as presented.
Motion by Christie,
Second.
second by Leslie. Any discussion on this? Ask for the vote. All those in favor? 6-0.
Raleigh?
Motion to extend the contract to Raleigh Van Wy as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on Raleigh? Anybody? Ask for the vote. All those in favor? Leslie was second. All those in favor? 6-0.
I do, Chad, if you'll allow me a second. I know there was some unrest after the vote last month about looking at contracts. I want to make sure you guys understand that I've never seen one. I have no idea what was in one, and I feel that we're not educated board members, for me at least, if we don't at least understand what we're voting on. That's why I asked this statement. It had nothing to do with anyone's performance or check and pay. It was strictly just to see the verbiage that's in an employment contract. So I want to make sure you guys understand that that was not my intent, was to upset you or cause any unrest whatsoever. And my reason for my vote tonight on the evaluations is I got a call from a teacher this week. And one of the questions they ask is, how do you guys know the administrators are doing their jobs? Do you guys see evaluations? Do you guys have discussions? I'm like, well, of course we have discussions. It's behind closed doors. It's executive session. I can't discuss what's discussed. And they were a little hesitant to, not that they had any one person in mind that they were upset with, but they're like, you literally just take someone's word for it that yeah, you should extend them. So again, it's not because I'm questioning anyone's performance or Max or Andy or somebody not doing their job whatsoever. So at least for me personally, I just want to make sure I address that with you guys, because that's not my intent, is to upset you guys by these votes by any means. So
I will also add that at some point, the contracts will be looked at about being extended for longer than 1 year period, which the board will look into. When Mr. Hansford arrives, I think that'll be his choice to be able to look at that. He is not allowed to look at your personnel files today. So, obviously in June or in July, when he comes on board, we'll, look at something and, probably in the fall or something, but thank you guys. Thank you guys for everything you do. We know we've asked a lot of you guys, and we continue to do so. You guys have given a lot of time, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I second that. Do we want to revisit the cheer thing?
Next, we have another executive session.
Oh,
Yeah, let's do
you
it.
do?
That's
Hello.
Oh, 10 minutes. Nobody wants to say. Tina basically
Good.
stuff they tell me happened there.
To go to 8:55 or something after a 5-minute break. Somebody want to make the motion?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Mr. President, I move that we go into executive session to discuss the following: individual employees' performance and recommendations, exception under coma, and proposals for upcoming negotiations under the employee negotiations, exception under coma. I propose we invite the superintendent to return, you said 8:55 after a 5-minute break?
I'll
I have a
second.
motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Eric, a second. All those in favor? 6-0. Wanna look around, have a look.
I don't wanna look around.
It's okay.
That's fine.
You got a hold hand? Yep.
That's why I do this from time to time.
That's why I'm glad.
That's why I love her. I can only see the back of my head. It's the best seat in the house.
it over there? Can you see it? I can't see this.
No, but I know what the angle is.
That's why, this is why I still like.
Ready, guys?
This is all they see.
Okay, we're back in regular session.
Isn't that perfect?
Oh, you took the picture short.
Yeah, so. Ready for other action?
Yes.
Okay. Conversation was to revisit the cheerleader request for out-of-state clinic. And we've had a board member show up that was not here at the time of the original vote. So I would make a recommendation that the board reconsider the request of the Kingman High School cheerleaders to attend the clinic in Florida in July pending safe pandemic travel. By that time, as determined by KDHE and CDC restrictions.
I made the motion earlier, so however you need me
You
to
want
revisit.
so Leslie's gonna make the motion.
I'll second it again.
Erica, second. Any discussion? All those in favor? 4 against? Show it 42.
Okay, so that passes Andy Raleigh. Really beyond that is we've got some weather situation that's gonna be problematic for the week. Raleigh just informed me that Annandale, Renwick canceled school tomorrow, which we're scheduled to play Garden Plain. So that game is canceled. Standard practice, as you all know, is if you cancel school, you cancel activities and all but really state type for the most part. So that plays into it. Norwich is supposed to go to Stafford tomorrow. And really the conversation that we're having just as a board, so you know, is whether we cancel tomorrow. We don't see any break in the weather for tomorrow, even a 2-hour delay. It's so cold, it's gonna be icy and slick and with the extreme low temperatures. So we're gonna, as an administrative team, we're gonna meet here briefly as the board meeting's over, and we'll make a decision unless you guys wanna give us guidance and get the credit or the blame.
No, that's all
All yours
yours.
is necessary. But I did, sorry, you said, I was gonna email the Booster Club, you said, I just wanna clarify one thing, you said postseason is not included in that subscription, and why was that? It's property of what?
Property of the Activity Association instead of us.
Those games are Acacia games.
I mean, technically, all the games are Keisha's purview, but regular season, we get the gate, if you will, at the games, and we get the gate, which the gate on the streaming on the National Federation, people think we made a bunch off of that, and we really don't. We make a nominal amount.
So just similar to the gate fees, it all belongs to Keisha. So I know we're gonna get a question, is it going to be streamed,
Well, yes, it'll be streamed.
but they'll have to pay for it? Okay.
Tammy, did you mention that you're hosting, that Norwich is hosting Sub-State?
Put that in my report.
Okay,
We are hosting
so it's hosting, so,
Yes.
and we split the gate with them after expenses, we get.
Quarterfinals are played at the higher seed, and then just semifinals and finals are played at the host school. Which is a bit different.
So, it's good. Yeah.
Next meeting, March 8th, at the district office at 7 o'clock. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Hopefully not that.
Anything you get to sign?
Yes, please.
Are we?
Yes. No, done. Already announced it, sorry.